She texted, "He broke my leg to the wrong number." Minutes later, the most feared Mafia boss in Chicago was standing outside her door. But this is not just a story about a dangerous man arriving at the perfect moment. It is about what happens when a woman who has spent years apologizing for her own pain finally becomes impossible to control. Sienna Hart lay bleeding on the cracked kitchen floor, listening to her boyfriend's boots return up the stairs. Her phone trembled in her hand. The stranger she had accidentally contacted sent one final message. "I am outside." By the end of this story, you will see how one mistake can become an escape, how survival can turn into power, and why being rescued is sometimes only the beginning. Stay with me until the end. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. Before Roman DeLuca stood outside her door, Sienna Hart had spent years learning how to disappear inside her own life. 24 hours earlier, she sat beneath the fluorescent lights of Great Lakes Freight Solutions, staring at a spreadsheet that refused to make sense. Beyond the office windows, hundreds of shipping containers stood beneath a gray Chicago sky. Cranes moved above them with slow mechanical precision, lifting steel boxes from trucks and placing them onto waiting trains. Snow had begun gathering along the edges of the freight yard, turning black where diesel exhaust settled over it. Inside, keyboards clicked. Phones rang. Someone laughed too loudly near the break room. Sienna heard all of it without truly listening. Her attention remained fixed on 3 numbers. 3 different fuel vendors had increased their service charges during the same billing period. That alone was not unusual. Fuel prices moved. Contracts changed. Drivers took longer routes when storms closed the interstate. But every increase was exactly 3%. Not 2.9, not 3.1, exactly 3. Sienna leaned closer to the monitor. A faint bruise beneath her left eye pulled when she narrowed her gaze. She had covered it with concealer that morning, but the makeup had begun collecting in the swollen skin. Her supervisor, Kent Wallace, dropped another stack of invoices beside her keyboard. "These need to be corrected before 5. Sienna glanced at the clock. It was already 4:20. "I am still reconciling the January fuel accounts." Kent adjusted the knot of his tie without looking at her. "Then stay late. I stayed late 3 nights last week, and that is why I trust you." He said it like a compliment. Sienna looked at the new stack. Payroll errors, driver reimbursements, duplicate toll charges, work that belonged to 2 other departments. Kent was already walking away. She almost called him back. The words rose into her throat, touched the back of her teeth, then disappeared. Years ago, Sienna had believed silence was a choice, something polite people used to avoid unnecessary conflict. Now silence happened before she could decide anything. Her body selected it for her. She returned to the spreadsheet. The 3% increase began in October. It appeared under separate vendor names, but the routing numbers led to accounts at the same bank. Someone had created layers of invoices to make one transaction look like several. Sienna copied the data into a private worksheet. Her fingers moved faster. There, a hidden pattern. The inflated charges were approved every second Thursday by a manager whose authorization code should not have appeared on vendor payments. Sienna printed the report and carried it to Kent's office. He was gathering his coat. "What is this? The fuel discrepancies are not clerical errors. Someone is routing the additional charges through 3 companies, but the accounts connect to the same bank." Kent scanned the first page. His expression changed. Not surprise. Recognition. How much? Just over $80,000 since October. He looked toward the glass wall of his office, checking whether anyone was close enough to hear. "Leave this with me. I should probably explain how I traced it. I understand the report, but the authorization codes are being copied from internal payment records. Whoever is doing it has access to management credentials." Kent's mouth tightened. "I said I understand." Sienna lowered her voice. "Should we notify compliance, I will handle it." He slid the report into his briefcase. Sienna remained beside his desk. "You are not going to include my name." Kent gave her a practiced smile. "Your name is already attached to the department's success." "That is not what I asked." For 1 second, the room became very still. Sienna felt her heartbeat in the bruise beneath her eye. Kent studied her as if trying to decide whether the woman in front of him had changed. Then her phone vibrated. Derek's name appeared on the screen. The courage drained out of her before she answered. Hi, where are you at work? You were supposed to leave 10 minutes ago, I know. Kent gave me another report. Derek breathed into the phone. Not loudly. He never needed to be loud at first. You said you would be home. I am leaving now. You always say that after I have to call. Sienna glanced at Kent. He had already turned toward his computer, dismissing her. I am sorry. There it was. The sentence that solved nothing and ended everything. I am coming now. Derek ended the call. Sienna returned to her desk, closed the private worksheet, and shut down the computer. As she put on her coat, she saw Kent through the office glass, speaking into his phone with her report open in front of him. By morning, he would present the discovery as his own. Sienna knew it. She also knew she would allow it. Outside, the wind cut between the buildings and pushed loose snow across the parking lot. Sienna wrapped her coat tighter and hurried toward her car. She had almost reached it when her phone rang again. This time the screen showed her sister's name, Lila Hart. Sienna stopped walking. Derek checked the call history every night. Sometimes he pretended he had picked up her phone by accident. Sometimes he asked questions about calls she had made days earlier, waiting to see whether her answers changed. Sienna looked toward the office building. Then she crossed the parking lot and entered the concrete stairwell attached to the employee garage. The heavy door closed behind her, shutting out the wind. She answered, Hey, you sound out of breath. I was walking to the car. Lila was silent for a moment. You missed dinner on Sunday. I had a migraine. You also missed Dad's birthday call. I forgot. You never forget. Sienna sat on the cold metal step. Her sister worked as a trauma nurse in Evanston. She had spent enough years listening to frightened people minimize injuries to recognize the rhythm of a lie. Lila's voice softened. Look at me. We are on the phone. Start a video call. I cannot. Why? Because I am in the stairwell, and because there is something on your face. Sienna touched the bruise. He did not mean to. The words escaped before she could stop them. Lila inhaled slowly. Sienna, we had an argument. Did he hit you? It was not like that. What was it like? Sienna stared down at the salt stains on her boots. Derek had thrown his phone against the wall because she had not answered quickly enough. When she tried to leave the room, he blocked the doorway. When she moved past him, his elbow struck her face. That was the story he gave her afterward. His elbow, an accident, a misunderstanding caused by her attempt to walk away. He was angry, Sienna whispered. He hit you. I am handling it. No, you are surviving it. Sienna pressed her free hand against her mouth. The stairwell smelled like cold concrete and motor oil. Somewhere above her, a door opened, then closed. Lila lowered her voice. Come to my place tonight. I cannot. Yes, you can. I will drive down. He is already expecting me. That is not a reason to go home. You do not understand what happens when plans change. I understand exactly what happens. Lila had seen Derek's control long before Sienna had been willing to name it. The constant messages, the canceled dinners, the way Sienna stopped wearing lipstick because Derek accused her of inviting attention, the way she gave up a promotion because the new position required occasional travel. Lila had confronted him once. Derek had smiled through the entire conversation. Later that night, he told Sienna her sister was trying to destroy the only stable relationship she had ever had. Within 6 months, Sienna and Lila were speaking less than once a week. Tomorrow, Sienna said. Lila did not answer immediately. Tomorrow what? He works until 6. I can pack while he is gone. Sienna, are you saying you are leaving? Her chest tightened. Saying it aloud made the plan feel dangerous. Real things could be discovered. Real things could be punished. Yes, Lila's breath broke. All right, I will be outside your building at 5. No, park around the corner. Why, he knows your car. Sienna, listen to yourself. I am listening. That is why I need you to park around the corner. Lila went quiet again. All right, 5 o'clock. Call me the second he leaves for work. I will. Promise me. I promise. And do not tell him anything tonight. I know. Sienna. What you do not have to take everything. Sienna looked through the narrow stairwell window at her car. What do you mean clothes can be replaced? Dishes can be replaced. Every object in that apartment can disappear, and you will still be you. Sienna closed her eyes. I know. But she did not know. Not yet. She deleted the call from her history before leaving the stairwell. The drive from the freight yard to Bridgeport took 36 minutes in evening traffic. Derek called twice. The first time he asked why she had stopped near the employee garage for 7 minutes. The second time he asked whether she had bought anything because a $12 pharmacy charge had appeared on their shared account. Pain medication, Sienna said. For what, my head? You could have taken something at home. I ran out. You should have told me. Sienna tightened her grip on the steering wheel. I am telling you now, that is not the same. When she reached the apartment, Derek was standing near the window. He looked down at the street as she parked. By the time she reached the 3rd floor, he had opened the door. You used 7 more miles than usual. Sienna stepped inside. What the car? He held up his phone. The tracking application displayed a map of her route. You drove around the employee garage. I missed the exit. You have worked there for 4 years. A delivery truck blocked the lane. Derek stared at her. He was handsome in the way that made strangers trust him too quickly. Broad shoulders, light brown hair, a clean jaw. He worked at a repair shop on South Halstead and knew how to speak to customers without ever appearing impatient. He saved his impatience for home. His gaze moved to her face. The makeup is wearing off. Sienna removed her coat. I know. You should fix it before anyone sees. No one is coming over. That is not the point. He closed the door and turned the lock. Dinner was already on the table. Pasta from a box, jarred sauce, 2 bottles of beer. Derek watched her sit. You seem distracted. I had a long day. Kent keeping you late again? Yes, he takes advantage of you because you let him. Sienna looked down at her plate. The irony passed between them without touching him. Derek took a drink. You should quit. We need my income. I make enough. No, you do not. The words came out too quickly. Derek placed the bottle on the table. Sienna felt the change immediately. Not in his face, in the room. The refrigerator seemed louder. The radiator clicked. A car horn sounded outside and vanished into the night. Derek leaned back. What did you say? I said the rent increased. That is not what you said. I meant we both need to work. You think I cannot provide for you? I did not say that. You did. Sienna set down her fork. I am tired. I do not want to argue. Derek smiled without warmth. Then stopped starting arguments. He reached across the table and touched the bruise beneath her eye. His thumb pressed harder than necessary. Sienna stayed still. You know I hate seeing this, he said. She almost laughed. Instead, she swallowed. I know. I lose control because you push until I have nowhere else to go. His thumb moved along her cheek. If you would listen the first time, none of this would happen. Sienna looked into his eyes and gave him the answer he needed. I am sorry. His shoulders relaxed. He kissed her forehead. See, we are fine. Across the city, Roman DeLuca sat at the head of a private dining room above a restaurant in River North. The room had no windows. Dark wood covered the walls. A single brass light hung above a polished table. The air smelled of espresso tobacco and the faint smoke rising from the kitchen below. A man named Victor Hale knelt beside the table. His expensive suit was damp with sweat. Roman turned a page in a leather-bound ledger. Nico Caruso stood near the door with his hands folded in front of him. No one else moved. Roman read the figures in silence. Victor had worked with the DeLuca organization for 9 years. He managed access to 2 freight terminals and maintained relationships with city inspectors who preferred cash to questions. For 8 years, he had been reliable. 3 weeks earlier, he had sold a shipment schedule to the Rojas cartel. 2 DeLuca drivers had been shot during the hijacking. One would never walk again. Roman closed the ledger. You were paid $600,000 last year. Victor nodded rapidly. Yes, Mr. DeLuca. Your daughter's tuition was covered. Yes, your wife's surgery was covered. Victor's lips trembled. I know what you have done for me. Roman studied him. No. You know what you received. Victor looked down. I made a mistake. A mistake is adding the wrong number. Roman placed one finger on the closed ledger. You sold a route. Men bled because of it. I can return the money. The money is not the debt. Victor began to cry. Roman showed no anger. Anger was noisy. It distorted judgment. Roman preferred numbers because numbers did not beg. You believed my generosity meant you were safe from consequence. No, you believed loyalty was optional once the price became high enough. Victor shook his head. Roman looked toward Nico. Remove him from every DeLuca account. Transfer his properties to the injured drivers' families. His name goes to every port from Milwaukee to New Orleans. Victor's face collapsed. No one will hire me. That is correct. Mr. DeLuca, please. Roman opened the ledger and drew a line through Victor's name. The account is settled. Nico pulled Victor to his feet and led him from the room. Roman remained seated. His phone vibrated on the table. Not his business phone. The other one. A private number almost no one possessed. Roman looked at the screen. The message contained 6 words. He broke my leg. Please come now. Roman read it twice. Nico returned and glanced at the phone. A trap, possibly. The next message appeared. Sorry, wrong number. Please ignore it. Roman's expression changed so slightly that only Nico noticed. Block it, Nico said. Roman did not. He typed a question. You said someone broke your leg. The response took longer. It arrived with several typing errors. Roman asked whether the man was still there. No. Then a photograph appeared by accident, likely attached when the damaged phone registered a swipe across the screen. Most of the image was dark. Roman enlarged it. A woman's hand rested against cracked linoleum. Blood covered 2 fingers. In the upper corner of the photograph, the edge of a leg appeared beneath torn denim. Roman stood, traced the number. Nico removed his phone. She said it was a mistake. She said the number was a mistake. Roman called the woman. No answer. He sent another message. Give me his name and your address. Nico watched him. We have a warehouse to inspect. The warehouse will still exist in 10 minutes. Roman. The use of his first name carried a warning only Nico was allowed to give. Roman looked toward the closed door. For a moment, the dining room disappeared. He saw another room, a smaller kitchen, green cabinets, a woman sitting on the floor with blood beneath her nose. Roman was 17 again, staring at a message he had refused to answer because he was angry that his mother had returned to the man who hurt her. He had arrived 3 hours later. The kitchen had been silent. Roman looked back at the phone. I've ignored this message once. The woman sent an address, Bridgeport, 8 minutes from the warehouse convoy. Then a name, Derek Vaughn. Roman buttoned his coat. Call Mercer. He is already with the injured driver. Tell him to prepare for a displaced fracture. They left the restaurant through the private exit. Outside, snow had begun to fall over Chicago. 3 black vehicles waited at the curb. Roman entered the center vehicle while Nico called the technical team. Within 2 minutes, they confirmed the apartment address. The phone belonged to Sienna Hart, age 28, payroll analyst, no criminal history. 2 domestic disturbance calls had been made from the address during the previous year. Neither resulted in charges. The same police captain had closed both reports. Roman read the name, Captain Thomas Bell, a man who had accepted DeLuca money for 6 years. Roman's jaw hardened. Call Bell. The captain answered on the second ring. His voice changed when he realized who was calling. Mr. DeLuca, do you know Derek Vaughn Silence? His cousin works patrol in the 9th District? Bell said carefully. Did you close 2 domestic complaints at Vaughn's address? Another silence. The woman refused to cooperate. Roman looked through the dark window as the vehicle turned south. Did she refuse before or after you told her the complaint could destroy her boyfriend's life? Bell did not answer. Roman ended the call. Remove him from payroll, he told Nico. The convoy moved faster. At 5 the following afternoon, Sienna stood in the bedroom she shared with Derek and folded a sweater into an open suitcase. She had waited until his truck disappeared at the end of the block. Then she called Lila. 5 o'clock, Sienna whispered. Around the corner, I am already driving. Sienna ended the call and packed. She took 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, her mother's watch, a folder containing her birth certificate and employment records. She moved through the apartment, carefully erasing signs of departure. She wiped the bathroom sink after removing her toothbrush. She left half the cash in the emergency envelope. She washed the cup she had used that morning. Lila's words returned to her. You do not have to take everything. Still, Sienna folded each piece of clothing. She aligned the shoes in the suitcase. She returned a book to the shelf because Derek would notice the empty space. The front door opened. Sienna stopped breathing. Derek stepped inside. His work shirt was unbuttoned at the throat. Grease marked both hands. His gaze moved from Sienna to the suitcase. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he closed the door. "You are leaving me." Sienna backed toward the bedroom window. "I need some time. You packed your documents, Derek. You planned this." He stepped forward. Sienna moved around the bed. "Do not come closer." His face changed. The charming version disappeared so completely that she wondered how anyone had ever believed it existed. "You think you can walk out after everything I have done for you? I am not discussing this. You owe me a discussion." He grabbed her wrist. Sienna pulled free. For once she did not apologize. She reached the hallway. Derek caught her by the shoulder and spun her around. His fist struck the side of her jaw. Light burst behind her eyes. She stumbled into the living room. "Look what you make me do," he shouted. Sienna reached for the front door. Derek kicked the back of her knee. She fell. The second kick landed against her shin. The crack sounded like a branch breaking in winter. Sienna hit the floor. For one impossible second there was no pain, only shock. Then the fire came. She looked down and saw the wrong angle beneath her jeans. Derek stared at her leg, his face drained of color. "You moved." Sienna could not speak. "You moved when I kicked." He backed toward the door. "I need air." She reached for him. "Call an ambulance." Derek opened the door. "I will get ice." Then he left her bleeding on the floor. Sienna dragged herself toward the coffee table. 4 feet, 3, 2. Her fingers reached the phone. She typed Lila's number from memory. The final 2 digits changed places beneath her shaking thumb. "He broke my leg. Please come now." The message reached Roman DeLuca. Minutes later, Derek returned carrying a bag of ice. 3 measured knocks sounded at the door. The lock tore out of the frame. Nico entered first, caught Derek by the throat, and drove him into the wall. Roman stepped through the splintered doorway. His gaze passed over the blood, the suitcase, and the woman on the floor. "Which one of you sent the message?" Sienna raised her trembling hand. Roman looked at her broken leg. Then he turned toward Derek and quietly removed his gloves. Roman looked at Sienna's broken leg. Then he turned toward Derek and quietly removed his gloves. The apartment seemed to shrink around him. Derek was still pinned against the wall by Nico, his boot scraping uselessly against the floor. Dust from the shattered door floated through the hallway light. Snow blew through the open frame and melted against the blood on the linoleum. Roman stepped closer. "Did you break her leg?" Derek swallowed. She fell. Roman glanced toward the suitcase in the bedroom doorway. It was open. Neatly folded clothing filled one side. A file containing personal documents rested on top. "She fell while leaving you." Derek's face tightened. "We were arguing." Roman looked at the bruises on his knuckles. "And your hands became involved in the conversation. It was an accident." Roman stopped in front of him. He did not raise his voice. That made Derek more afraid. Roman took Derek's right hand and turned it beneath the hallway light. He examined the swollen knuckles as though checking damaged merchandise. Derek tried to pull away. Nico tightened his grip around Derek's throat. Roman looked at Sienna. She had dragged herself backward until her shoulders touched the base of the couch. Her phone remained clenched in one bloody hand. Her breathing came in shallow, uneven pulls. Roman returned his attention to Derek. "I am going to ask you once more." Derek stared at him. "Did you break her leg?" "No." Roman bent Derek's wrist. Slowly. The first movement produced no sound. The second forced Derek onto his toes. The third made him scream. Roman stopped just before the joint gave way. Derek's entire body shook. Roman leaned closer. "This is the last honest answer you will be offered." Derek's eyes moved toward Sienna. Hatred replaced fear for half a second. "She made me do it." Roman's expression emptied. The wrist broke with a short, dry crack. Derek's scream filled the apartment. Roman released his hand. Derek folded forward, but Nico held him against the wall. Roman stepped back and put his gloves into the pocket of his coat. "Now we have established what an accident sounds like." Sienna stared at Derek's ruined wrist. Her stomach turned. A dark part of her felt relief. That frightened her more than Roman did. Footsteps moved through the hallway. A man entered carrying a black trauma bag. He was in his 40s, clean-shaven with silver beginning at his temples. He wore a dark wool coat over hospital scrubs. He did not look at Derek. He went directly to Sienna. "I am Dr. Aaron Mercer." Sienna pressed herself harder against the couch. "I need an ambulance. You need your leg stabilized before transport. I said I need an ambulance. Mercer set the bag on the floor and opened it. Roman remained several feet away. No police sirens, he said. No emergency room waiting area. No report that disappears before sunrise. Sienna looked at him. You do not know that. Roman took out his phone and placed it on the coffee table. A call was still connected. A man's voice came through the speaker. Mr. DeLuca, I can explain. Roman looked at Sienna. Captain Thomas Bell closed 2 complaints from this address. The name struck her harder than she expected. Captain Bell had sat across from her in a police station 11 months earlier. He had told her that Derek could lose his job if she exaggerated what happened. He had asked whether she wanted to destroy a man's future over one bad night. She had withdrawn the complaint. Roman spoke into the phone. You will explain later. He ended the call. Sienna stared at the dark screen. Mercer touched 2 fingers to the pulse at her ankle. His face changed. The swelling is cutting off circulation. He pulled heavy shears from his bag. I need to remove the denim. Sienna looked down at her jeans. No, if I leave the fabric in place, I cannot assess the injury. Her hand moved to her thigh, protecting nothing. Mercer waited. Roman did not tell her what to do. The silence forced the choice back into her hands. Sienna nodded once. Mercer cut through the denim from ankle to knee. The fabric separated. The skin beneath it was purple and stretched tight. The broken bone pressed against the inside of her shin without piercing through. Mercer exhaled. Severe displacement. He looked at Roman. She needs surgery. The blood flow is already compromised. Sienna gripped the edge of the couch. What does that mean? It means the bone has moved far enough to threaten the vessels beneath it. Can you fix it here? I can align it for transport. The way he said it made her chest tighten. How much will that hurt? Mercer held her gaze. A great deal. Derek began sobbing near the wall. Please, he said. Please do not let them take me. Sienna turned her head. He cradled his wrist against his chest. His face was wet with tears. She had seen that face before. He used it after every broken plate, every bruise, every locked door. It was the face he wore when consequences became real. Derek looked at her as though she were still responsible for saving him. Sienna, tell them it was a mistake. She said nothing. Sienna. Roman looked at Nico. Take him to the river warehouse. Derek's face collapsed. No. Nico will make certain you remain alive. Derek twisted in his grip. You cannot do this. Roman's gaze settled on him. You called a police officer before returning to this apartment? Derek stopped struggling. Sienna felt the room tilt. Roman continued. You told him your girlfriend had injured herself while drunk. You asked how quickly a report could be prepared. Sienna looked at Derek. He refused to meet her eyes. Roman's voice stayed quiet. You were building your defense before you brought her ice. Derek shook his head. That is not what happened. Roman looked toward Nico. Remove him. Nico dragged Derek toward the ruined doorway. Derek kicked at the floor. His pleas became louder. Sienna, do not let him do this. The same man who had left her bleeding now expected her protection. She watched him disappear into the hall. His voice faded down the stairs. For the first time in years, the apartment became truly silent. Mercer removed a traction splint from his bag. He looked at Roman. I need her shoulders held. Sienna's attention snapped back to him. No, Mercer spoke carefully. The bone must be brought closer to alignment before we move you. If it shifts farther, you may lose circulation completely. I cannot. You can refuse. Mercer's tone remained clinical. But the delay may cost you the lower part of your leg. Sienna looked toward Roman. He stood near the broken door with snow gathering on the shoulders of his coat. What happens if I go with you? You receive surgery. Wear a private medical wing. Who's mine? Sienna laughed once. The sound came out sharp and breathless. You break into my apartment, take my boyfriend, and expect me to follow you to a private hospital. I do not expect trust. Then what do you expect? Roman looked at her leg. Recognition of the facts. She hated his calmness. She hated that he stood upright while her entire life lay broken around her. You could call an ambulance. Yes, then call one. Roman took out his phone. He held it toward her. You may call. Sienna stared at it. Roman continued. You may explain the injury to responding officers. Captain Bell will arrive or send someone he controls. Derek's report will already exist. You will wait in a public emergency room while his friends learn where you are. Her fingers tightened around her phone. You are trying to scare me. No. Roman's eyes held hers. I am telling you what Derek arranged. Mercer adjusted the splint. We are losing time. Sienna looked at the open doorway. Cold air moved across the floor. Her home no longer looked like a home. The broken frame exposed the hall. The suitcase waited in the bedroom. Blood stained the place where she had almost died while trying to leave. She closed her eyes. Do it. Mercer nodded toward Roman. Roman removed his coat and laid it over the back of a chair. He knelt beside Sienna but did not touch her. Wear my shoulders, Mercer said. Keep her flat. Roman placed one hand on each shoulder. His grip was firm without being painful. Sienna looked up at him. If I tell you to stop, Roman answered immediately. I stop. Mercer positioned the splint beneath her leg. Take a breath. Sienna inhaled. Mercer pulled. Pain erased the room. Her body arched against Roman's hands. A scream tore from her throat. She grabbed the front of his shirt and twisted the fabric in both fists. The pressure in her shin became a white blaze. She heard Mercer speaking, but the words had no meaning. Roman remained above her. Look at me. She could not. Sienna. Her eyes opened. His face was the only still thing in the room. Again, Mercer said. Sienna shook her head. Roman kept his promise. Stop. Mercer froze. We are almost aligned. She said no. Mercer's jaw tightened. Sienna gasped for air. She looked down at the leg, then back at Roman. The interruption had given her one thing she had not possessed all evening. A decision. Finish it. Mercer pulled again. The bone shifted. Sienna screamed until no sound remained. Then the pressure changed. The sharp agony settled into a heavy, throbbing burn. Mercer secured the splint. Done. Sienna released Roman's shirt. Her fingers had left blood on the black fabric. I am sorry, she whispered automatically. Roman looked down at the stains. Do not apologize for bleeding. Men entered with a rigid transport board. They moved carefully, securing Sienna with straps. As they lifted her, she looked toward the bedroom. The suitcase remained open. Her mother's watch lay on top of the folded clothing. My bag. Roman followed her gaze. Nico will collect it. No, not him. Roman studied her. Who, my sister? He took out his phone. Her name, Lila Hart. Roman called Nico before they reached the stairs. Find Lila Hart. Bring her to a secure location. She is not to be touched or frightened. Sienna stared at him. You cannot bring my sister into this. Derek knows she was helping you leave. Her throat tightened. How he checked your phone records. The stretcher began descending the narrow staircase. Roman walked beside it. Sienna could see the black vehicles through the front entrance below. Neighbors watched from cracked doors. No one stepped into the hall. Outside, snow struck her face. The cold felt unreal. Mercer climbed into the rear of a large black vehicle and connected an intravenous line to her hand. Roman stood near the open doors. Sienna's vision blurred. What happens to Derek? He remains alive. That is not what I asked. Roman's face gave nothing away. He will never reach you again. The medication entered her bloodstream. The streetlights stretched into white lines. Sienna fought to remain awake. Why did you answer? Roman looked at her for a long moment. Because someone once sent me the same message. The vehicle doors closed before she could ask who. Darkness came slowly. When Sienna opened her eyes again, there was no traffic beyond the walls. No train shaking the windows. No radiator clicking in the corner. A monitor beeped beside the bed. Soft gray curtains covered tall windows. The ceiling was smooth and white. The sheets smelled faintly of lavender and antiseptic. Her right leg felt impossibly heavy. She pulled back the blanket. A reinforced cast extended from her thigh to her ankle. Panic rose in her chest. Mercer stood from a chair near the window. Do not move too quickly. What did you do? Your tibia was fractured in 4 places. Sienna stared at him. You performed surgery? Yes, I did not give permission. You were unconscious, and the blood supply was failing. She touched the top of the cast. Mercer continued. I inserted a titanium rod through the center of the tibia. Plates and screws stabilized the fragments. Without surgery, you would likely have lost the leg. Sienna looked around the room. Where am I, Lake Forest? That is not an answer. You are in the medical wing of Roman DeLuca's residence. The name reached her slowly. DeLuca. She had heard it before. Everyone in Chicago had, though most people pretended they had not. Roman DeLuca owned restaurants, construction companies, freight contracts, and half a dozen charities. He also owned people. Sienna pulled at the intravenous line. "I am leaving. You cannot stand. Then call my sister." The door opened. Roman entered without his coat. He wore dark trousers and a black shirt with the sleeves folded to his forearms. He stopped several feet from the bed. "Lila is safe." Sienna looked at him. "Where is she in Evanston? You contacted her. She knows you were injured. She believes you are receiving protected medical care. She believes I did not give her this address." Sienna turned toward Mercer. "Leave." Mercer looked at Roman. Roman nodded. The doctor exited and closed the door. Sienna waited until they were alone. "You kidnapped me. I removed you from an active threat. That is kidnapping with better vocabulary." Roman accepted the accusation without reaction. "You operated on me without consent. You were unconscious. Because your doctor drugged me. Because your body was entering shock." Sienna gripped the blanket. "You do not get to decide everything because you arrived with more men." Roman remained still. "You are correct." The answer disarmed her. She had expected argument. He continued. "I decided because the alternative was permanent damage or death. You may hate the decision. You may hate me. Both are permitted." "Permitted." The word burned. "You speak as though I am already under your authority. You are not." "Then open the door. It is unlocked." Sienna looked toward it. Roman stepped aside. "You may leave." She stared at the cast. He did not smile. He did not need to. "You know I cannot." "Yes. That makes this a prison. It makes this a room you are physically unable to leave." The distinction only made her angrier. "What do you want from me?" Roman walked toward a small table and placed a folder on it. He opened the cover. Inside were medical invoices, security costs, projected rehabilitation expenses, and lost wages. The total at the bottom made Sienna's breathing stop. "I do not have that kind of money." "I know, you said you did not want my money. I do not." "Then why show me this?" "Because rescue creates a debt." Sienna looked at him. "There it is." Roman's eyes narrowed slightly. "What?" "The price." He closed the folder. "I need someone who can see patterns others miss." Sienna said nothing. Roman continued. "You found $80,000 in stolen fuel charges at Great Lakes Freight." Her stomach tightened. "How do you know that Kent Wallace presented your report to the board this morning?" He said it was his. "Yes." Roman placed a black laptop on the table. "I have accountants. They are competent and well paid. They also know only what I permit them to know." He opened the laptop. A file filled the screen. Columns of payments appeared beside names, port codes, account numbers, and government offices. "I need one person to manage the complete ledger." Sienna stared at the data. "This is criminal. Some of it, most of it." Roman did not disagree. "You want me to work for you, for 3 years, and if I refuse, a driver takes you wherever you choose, with no job. That is correct. No home. Your apartment is compromised, a leg I cannot walk on. Yes, and Derek's friends looking for me." Roman held her gaze. "Yes." Sienna laughed bitterly. "That is not a choice. No, at least you admit it. I do not decorate facts." She looked at the folder again. 3 years. The number felt like another locked door. Roman waited. He did not rush her. That patience felt more dangerous than pressure. Sienna looked at the laptop, then at the cast, then at the door she could not reach. "If I agree, I have conditions." Roman's attention sharpened. "I speak to Lila whenever I want." "Agreed. My room has a lock." "Agreed. You do not enter without permission." "Agreed. I receive a salary in addition to the debt reduction." "Yes." "I have physical therapy every day." "Yes, I do not participate in torture." Roman was silent. Sienna's pulse quickened. Finally he said, "You will not be required to carry it out. That is not what I said. You will see the consequences attached to the numbers you manage. I will not choose who gets hurt." Roman watched her. "Then do not give me inaccurate information." Sienna looked away. He had turned the condition back into responsibility. She hated that part of her, understood the logic. "I want everything in writing." Roman removed a pen from his pocket. "It already is." He opened the folder to the final page. The contract listed every condition she had named except one. Her room. Roman took the pen and added the clause by hand. He signed beneath it. Then he placed the pen beside Sienna. She read every line. Twice. Roman waited through all of it. At last, Sienna signed her name. The ink looked strange beneath her fingers. Like evidence. Roman closed the folder. You begin when Mercer clears you. Sienna leaned back against the pillows. I have one more question. Roman paused. What happened to Derek? He is alive. You keep saying that, because it is the part you are prepared to hear. Sienna's throat tightened. Roman turned toward the door. Before he reached it, she spoke again. Why me? Roman looked back. Because you noticed 3% when everyone else saw noise. He opened the door. And because you finally asked for help. Roman left her alone with the black laptop. For several minutes, Sienna did not touch it. Then the screen brightened. One payment record remained open. The recipient was Captain Thomas Bell. The description beside the transfer contained only 4 words. Domestic Complaints South Side. Sienna placed her fingers on the keyboard. For the first time, the numbers did not feel like a place to hide. They felt like a weapon. For the first time, the numbers did not feel like a place to hide. They felt like a weapon. Sienna spent the next hour reading until the medication blurred the columns into pale lines. The ledger contained everything respectable Chicago pretended not to know. Payments to building inspectors appeared beside donations to city campaigns. Freight companies billed for shipments that had never existed. Police officers received monthly deposits through consulting firms owned by their relatives. Judges who publicly praised law and order accepted quiet favors from men whose names never appeared in court. Captain Thomas Bell had received 6 payments during the previous year. 2 arrived within days of Sienna reporting Derek. She opened the attached notes. The language was cold and ordinary. Complaint contained. Witness uncooperative. No further exposure expected. Sienna read the words again. Witness uncooperative. They had reduced the worst nights of her life to accounting language. A knock sounded at the door. Sienna closed the file. Dr. Mercer entered with a syringe and a small paper cup. Antibiotics. I do not want more medication. This is not for pain. He checked the monitor beside her bed. You have been awake too long. I am working. You signed a contract less than 2 hours after waking from surgery. That sounds like something a doctor should have objected to. Mercer glanced at the laptop. Mr. DeLuca does not ask me for legal advice. He does not seem to ask anyone for advice. That is not entirely true. Mercer injected medication into the intravenous line. He listens when the information is useful. Sienna watched him remove the syringe, and when it is not, he listens until the speaker stops talking. The answer should not have comforted her. It did. Mercer placed the paper cup on the bedside table. You will begin physical therapy when the swelling decreases. When will I walk? Not soon. That is not an answer. 8 to 12 weeks before full weight bearing, assuming the bone heals properly. Longer before you walk without assistance. Sienna looked toward the cast. The shape beneath the blanket no longer felt connected to her body. What if it does not heal properly, then we operate again? Mercer said it without softness. She appreciated that. He checked her pulse, then left her alone. The first week passed through pain, sleep, and numbers. Sienna spoke to Lila every morning. Roman never listened from the room, but Sienna assumed the calls were monitored somewhere else. She tested the possibility by mentioning details that would tempt him to react. He never did. Lila believed Sienna was recovering in a private clinic funded by a corporate assistance program. She asked for the address repeatedly. Sienna lied repeatedly. The lies became harder when Lila cried. I should have been there. You were driving. I should have told you to leave sooner. You did. I should have done more. Sienna closed her eyes. Derek had taught her that blame belonged to the nearest person willing to carry it. I made the decision to stay, she said. Not you. Lila became quiet. It was the first time Sienna had said the sentence aloud without defending Derek. On the 8th morning, a woman entered the room pushing a wheelchair. She was short, broad-shouldered, and wore navy medical clothes. Gray threaded through her dark hair. She looked at the cast, then at Sienna. Mara Ellis, another doctor physical therapist. Mara locked the wheelchair beside the bed. Sit up. Sienna stared at her. I just had surgery. And now you are going to sit. I can already sit. Show me. Sienna pushed herself upright. pain dragged through her shin and settled beneath her knee. Her stomach tightened. Sweat formed along her hairline before she reached the edge of the mattress. Mara watched without helping. Sienna lowered her good foot to the floor. The injured leg remained stiff and heavy. "Now move into the chair. I need someone to hold the cast." "No." Sienna looked at her. Mara folded her arms. "You asked for daily therapy. This is therapy." Sienna gripped the mattress and shifted her weight. The first attempt failed. Her arms shook. The cast swung an inch and sent a hot pulse through her leg. She fell back against the pillows. Mara waited. Sienna tried again. By the fourth attempt, her hospital gown clung to her back. By the sixth, she wanted to throw the wheelchair through the window. On the seventh attempt, she moved into the seat. Mara placed the foot support beneath the cast. "Good." Sienna stared at her. "That is all that was all for today. You let me fail 6 times for that. I let you learn 6 ways that did not work." Mara pushed the chair toward the bathroom. "Tomorrow you do it without swearing at me." Sienna looked back at the bed. "I did not swear." "You were thinking loudly." The days developed structure, morning medication, breakfast, a call with Lila. 2 hours of ledger work, physical therapy, more ledger work, sleep when her body overruled her. Roman rarely entered her room. Documents arrived through Nico, who placed them on the table and left without conversation. Some were legitimate company records. Others listed cash payments, false invoices, or controlled shipments moving through Chicago terminals. Sienna began by organizing. Roman's accountants had built separate systems designed to keep each person ignorant of the whole. One tracked restaurants. Another handled construction. A third managed freight. No one saw how money traveled between them. Sienna created a central structure. She added dates, authorization codes, route numbers, and personnel records. She traced every payment to its source and every source to a person. The more she organized, the more she saw. Some men in Roman's organization were loyal because he paid well. Others were loyal because they were afraid. A smaller number believed in him. Those men were the most dangerous. Roman entered one evening while Sienna was reviewing payments connected to the Calumet terminals. He stopped inside the doorway. "You knocked," she said. "Yes." And waited. "Yes." Sienna closed one file and opened another. "What do you need?" Roman approached the desk beside the window. He wore a dark suit, but his tie was loose. Snow had melted along the shoulders of his coat. "You moved $200,000 from the North Shore Development account. It did not belong there. It was there intentionally. It was exposed." Roman placed a folder beside the laptop. "The account is legitimate. The company is legitimate. The financial officer is not." Roman looked at the screen. Sienna opened a series of transfers. "He has been rounding contractor payments upward, then moving the difference into a consulting firm owned by his brother. How much? $47,000 over 9 months. Roman read the figures. "You discovered this while organizing a different account." "Yes." His attention moved to her. "Kent Wallace employed you for 4 years. He did, and never promoted you." "No." Why? The question irritated her. "Ask him. I did." Sienna stopped typing. Roman's expression remained calm. "What did he say? That you were dependable, quiet, and better placed in a support position?" Sienna laughed without humor. "That sounds like Kent. He also said you lacked leadership instincts." Roman leaned one hand against the desk. "I removed him from the account this morning." Sienna looked at him. "You did what Great Lakes Freight handled several of my legitimate shipments. It no longer does." "You punished an entire company because one man insulted me." Now Roman tapped the screen. "I removed a company whose management ignored theft until you found it. That decision affects people who had nothing to do with Kent. Yes, you cannot rearrange hundreds of jobs because you are angry. I am not angry. That makes it worse." Roman studied her for a moment. "What would you have done?" Sienna thought of Kent accepting her report and telling her to go home. "I would have given the company 30 days to remove him and correct its controls." Roman said nothing. She continued. "If they refused, then I would move the contracts." A slower response, a precise response. Roman straightened. "Prepare the conditions." Sienna stared at him. "You will offer them a chance if the conditions protect my operations." He turned toward the door. "Roman." He stopped. It was the first time she had used his name directly. "You do not have to change every decision because I disagree." "No." He looked back at her. "But disagreement without an alternative is noise. You provided an alternative." After he left, Sienna sat still for several seconds. She had challenged Derek many times in her thoughts. She had challenged Kent in conversations that never left her head. Roman was the first dangerous man she had contradicted and watched reconsider. The realization unsettled her more than fear would have. 3 weeks after surgery, Mercer removed the outer dressing. The incision ran along her knee and down the upper part of her shin. The skin was swollen and discolored. Metal staples caught the light. Sienna looked away. Mara did not allow it. "Look at your leg. I know what it looks like." "No, you know what you are afraid it looks like." Sienna forced her gaze downward. The leg seemed smaller, weaker. The muscle above the cast had already begun to soften. Mara touched the thigh. "Contract the muscle," Sienna tried. Nothing happened. "Again. I am trying. Your face is trying. Your leg is waiting." Sienna focused. A faint movement passed beneath the skin. Pain followed it immediately. She gasped. Mara nodded. "There. That felt terrible." It still moved. Sienna repeated the exercise until her entire body shook. Later that night, she woke with Derek's voice inside the room. "You moved when I kicked." She reached for the lamp. Her hand struck the water glass instead. It shattered on the floor. The sound brought 2 guards to the hallway. Roman arrived behind them. Sienna sat upright, breathing hard. The door remained closed. He did not enter. "Are you injured?" he asked through the wood. "No. Mercer is coming. I do not need Mercer." Roman dismissed the guards. Their footsteps faded. He remained outside. Sienna stared at the line of light beneath the door. "You can come in." Roman opened it and stopped near the threshold. Glass covered the floor beside the bed. He looked at her face, then at the window. "What did you hear?" "Nothing. You are a poor liar when you are tired." She pulled the blanket higher. "I heard Derek." Roman moved toward the armchair and sat. He did not call anyone to clean the glass. He did not tell her the room was safe. He simply remained there. Sienna looked at him through the dim light. "Why did you answer the message I told you? You said someone sent you the same words." Roman's gaze settled on the broken glass. "My mother." Sienna waited. He rarely offered information freely. Pressing too quickly would close the door. Roman folded his hands. "I was 17. She had returned to my stepfather after promising she would not." His voice remained controlled, but the control now required effort. "She sent a message while I was with friends. He had hurt her. I believed answering would begin another cycle I could not stop. You ignored it." "Yes." "What happened?" Roman looked toward the dark window. "I arrived 3 hours later." Sienna knew the rest before he said it. She was dead. The room became quiet. Sienna had imagined many reasons for Roman's hatred of men like Derek. Pride, possession, a private code built for reputation. She had not imagined a silent phone in the hand of a frightened boy. "I am sorry." Roman's eyes returned to her. "You apologize too often. That one was not about me." "No." He stood and moved toward the door. Sienna looked at the glass beside the bed. "Roman." He stopped. "Thank you for staying outside." His expression shifted almost too little to see. Then he left. The cast came off in early November. Mercer used a small saw that screamed against the fiberglass. Sienna hated the sound. She hated the smell of dust and the sensation of air touching skin that had been hidden for weeks. When the cast separated, her leg looked narrow and pale. The scars were red. Mara placed a black walking boot on the bed. "Stand." Sienna laughed. "No, you have been cleared for partial weight. Partial is not standing. It is the beginning of standing." Mara positioned 2 crutches beside her. Sienna moved to the edge of the therapy table. Her hands were already sweating. She remembered the kitchen floor, the wrong angle, Derek's boot. Her body understood danger before her mind could argue. Mara placed one hand near Sienna's elbow without touching her. "Your leg is not in that apartment." Sienna looked at the boot. "It feels like it is." "Then teach it where you are." Roman entered the gym. He had come directly from a meeting. His suit was dark blue, his expression unreadable. Mara glanced at him. "Bad timing." Roman looked at Sienna. "She has been cleared. She knows." Sienna gripped the crutches. "I am not doing this with an audience." Roman remained near the doorway. "You manage accounts worth millions while armed men wait for your conclusions. That is different." "Yes. Numbers cannot see you afraid." The words found the exact place she wanted hidden. Sienna's anger rose. "Leave." Roman did not move. "I said leave. You asked for physical therapy every day. I did not ask you to supervise it." He walked toward the crutches. Mara stepped between them. "Mr. DeLuca." Roman stopped. Sienna felt humiliated by the intervention. "I can stand." "Then stand," Roman said. She pushed herself upright on the good leg. The injured leg hung above the floor. Roman reached toward one crutch. Sienna tightened her grip. "Do not touch it. You are using them to avoid the movement. I am using them because my leg was broken. The bone is stable. You do not know what it feels like. I know fear can imitate injury." He took the left crutch before she could stop him. Sienna lost balance. Roman caught her arm. The room vanished. For 1 second, his hand became Derek's. Sienna struck him across the face. The sound echoed off the mirrors. Everyone froze. Roman released her immediately. Sienna caught herself against the therapy table. Her chest heaved. A red mark appeared along Roman's cheek. Nico, standing outside the gym, took 1 step forward. Roman raised a hand without looking at him. Sienna stared at Roman. "You do not get to teach me control by taking mine away." Roman's jaw tightened. She expected cold anger. Instead, he placed the crutch against the table. "You are correct." Mara looked at him. Roman turned and left the gym. Sienna lowered herself onto the table. Her hands would not stop shaking. Mara sat beside her. "You were right to stop him. I hit him. He ignored your boundary. He could have me killed." Mara looked toward the empty doorway. "He could. That does not frighten you." "It does." Mara folded a towel. "But fear does not make you wrong." The following morning, Sienna found both crutches beside her bed. A note rested across them. No signature, no apology, only 4 words. "You choose when to stand." Sienna read the sentence several times. Then she called Mara. They returned to the gym before breakfast. Roman was not there. Sienna positioned the crutches beneath her arms. Mara stood close enough to catch her but far enough to leave the movement hers. Sienna lowered the walking boot. The sole touched the floor. Pain rose through her shin. Her body tried to pull back. She stopped. The rod held. The bone held. Sienna shifted a fraction of her weight downward. The pain sharpened but did not become catastrophe. She breathed through it. 1 second, Mara said. Sienna remained upright. 2. Her arms shook. 3. She lifted the leg. The room returned around her. She had not fallen. Sienna laughed once, then covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Mara pretended not to notice. Beyond the glass wall, Roman stood in the corridor. He had not entered. Sienna met his gaze. He gave her one small nod. She turned back to Mara. Again. Recovery stopped being a straight line. Some mornings Sienna crossed half the gym. Other mornings the pain returned so fiercely she could not leave the bed. She learned that strength did not erase bad days. It simply prevented them from becoming permanent. Her work expanded as her body recovered. Roman gave her access to Port Records construction funds and transportation accounts. Sienna reorganized them into a single system that showed money moving through the organization in real time. That was when she found the 3%. It appeared in fuel surcharges at the Calumet terminals, the same percentage she had discovered at Great Lakes Freight. Sienna traced the invoices through 6 months of transactions. The approvals belonged to Grant Hollis Roman's senior logistics director. Hollis had served the DeLuca family for 15 years. He entered Roman's study wearing an expensive gray suit and looked at Sienna's carbon fiber cane before looking at her face. "This is the emergency." Sienna placed 6 invoices on the desk. "Explain the surcharge." Hollis glanced at the first page. Fuel adjustment. Fuel prices did not change during these billing periods. Then, weather delays. The routes were completed on schedule. Hollis looked toward Roman. "You brought me here to answer questions from her." Roman remained behind his desk. Sienna found the discrepancy. Hollis smiled. The charity case found a spreadsheet. Sienna felt the insult and let it pass through her. She opened a second folder. "These shell companies belong to your brother in Indiana." Hollis's smile disappeared. "The authorization codes are yours. The total is $83,000. It is a clerical issue." Sienna placed 3 handwritten forms beside the invoices. "Software did not write your initials." Silence filled the study. Roman leaned back. "Hollis." The older man turned toward him. I can repay it. Roman looked at Sienna. What consequence balances the theft? Hollis stared at her. This was the moment he understood she was not merely presenting evidence. Roman was giving her influence over the judgment. Sienna looked at Hollis's hands. She remembered Derek screaming when his wrist broke. She remembered how satisfying the sound had felt for one terrible second. Then she remembered Captain Bell's payment records. Systems lasted longer than bruises. Seize the hidden account, she said. Remove him from every DeLuca company. Transfer the recovered money to the 2 drivers injured because he approved cheaper security equipment. Hollis stepped forward. You cannot do that, Sienna continued. Distribute his name and evidence of the theft to every freight operator connected to the city. Roman watched her. No broken hand, a hand heals. She met Hollis's eyes. Losing everything he built remains. Roman considered the answer. Then he closed the folder. Do it. Nico entered and removed Hollis from the study. His threats followed him into the corridor. Sienna listened until they disappeared. Roman approached her. You changed the consequence. I balanced the damage. You spared him pain. No. Sienna looked toward the closed door. I chose the pain that lasts. Roman's gaze rested on her for a long moment. Numbers do not make you less dangerous. They make me more accurate. Something almost like approval moved through his expression. That night, Sienna remained in the study after midnight. Rain struck the tall windows. Roman worked across from her reading reports beneath a brass lamp. They no longer needed constant conversation. He placed a cup of black coffee beside her hand. She took it without looking up. Months earlier, Derek had known where she drove, what she purchased, and who called her. He had never known how she took her coffee. Roman did. Sienna opened another file. Small security payments had been issued on nights when private shipment routes changed. The amounts were too modest to attract attention. The timing was not. She expanded the records. Every payment connected to one contractor. The contractor connected to an account used by the Rojas cartel. Sienna sat straighter. Roman. He looked up. Someone is selling your routes. He crossed the room and stood behind her chair. Sienna displayed the transfer pattern. The payments begin 2 days before each change. Whoever receives the routes has access to internal security schedules. That limits the source to 7 people. 6. Roman looked at her. You included yourself. I know where the routes move. You did not sell them. The data does not care what you believe about me. Roman studied the screen. My inner circle has been tested for years. Loyalty is emotional. Sienna opened the payment history. The numbers are not. Roman reached for his phone. Before he could make the call, Sienna's terminal flashed. A message appeared across the screen. There was no sender. A photograph loaded beneath it. Roman's estate stood under a dark sky. The image had been taken from inside the security fence. Sienna enlarged it. In the lower corner, the reflection of a window showed part of the room where she and Roman were standing. The photograph was live. 6 words appeared beneath it. You should have stayed on the floor. Sienna reached for Roman's emergency line. Every light in the estate went out. The brass lamp died. The monitors went black. For half a second, the entire house held its breath. Then red emergency lights flooded the study. Gunfire erupted near the main gate. The sound came in sharp bursts that rolled through the walls and windows. Somewhere below, glass shattered. Men shouted across the lower floor. An alarm began pulsing through the estate, low and mechanical, before it was cut off mid-tone. Roman pulled Sienna away from the window. Down. They dropped behind the heavy oak desk as bullets tore through the glass where they had been standing. The windows exploded inward. Cold air filled the study. Shards scattered across the floor and struck the bookshelves like rain. Roman drew a pistol from beneath his jacket. Sienna reached for the black case beneath her desk. It contained the central drives, every account, every route, every payment, every name connected to Roman's organization. Roman saw what she was doing. Leave it. They came for the network. They came for me. They can want both. Another burst of gunfire struck the outer wall. Roman grabbed the case and threw it behind the desk. Sienna stared at him. We can rebuild numbers, he said. We cannot rebuild you. Nico's voice came through the small receiver in Roman's ear. They breached the west gate. 8 vehicles, possibly more in the trees. Roman pressed 2 fingers to the receiver. Interior status. Power lines cut. Security room compromised. Someone opened the maintenance entrance from inside. Sienna looked at the photograph still glowing faintly on the battery-powered laptop. The image had been taken from inside the property. The betrayal was already in the house. Roman pulled a second pistol from the desk and placed it in Sienna's hand. "You remember how to use it?" She checked the magazine. "You made me practice every Thursday." That was not an answer. "Yes," Nico spoke again. Rojas' men reached the foyer. Gunfire rolled through the lower level. Roman looked toward the study door, the bunker. Sienna reached for the black case again. Roman caught her wrist. The contact lasted less than a second. He released her before she could react. "Choose." Sienna looked at the case, then at him. She left it beneath the desk. Roman opened the study door. The corridor beyond was washed in red light. Smoke drifted from the stairwell. Roman moved, first pistol raised. Sienna followed close behind him. Her right leg ached before they had taken 5 steps. The scar tissue tightened beneath her trousers. The titanium rod felt cold inside the bone. She ignored it. 2 guards appeared from the opposite corridor. One pressed a hand to a wound in his shoulder. "South stairs are lost," he said. Roman pointed toward the guest wing. "Move the medical staff to the lower shelter. Hold the junction until Nico falls back." The men obeyed without question. Roman and Sienna moved toward the private elevator at the far end of the 2nd floor. The estate no longer resembled the quiet fortress she had learned to navigate. Smoke curled beneath doors. Sprinklers hissed over the gallery. A framed painting burned near the staircase. Someone screamed below. Sienna gripped the pistol with both hands. Roman looked at her. "Keep your finger outside the trigger until you see a target. I know. You are shaking. I am moving." His mouth tightened. "Stay behind me." They reached the turn near the library. A figure stepped from the shadows. Sienna raised the pistol. Roman caught the barrel and pushed it aside. Nico emerged through the smoke. Blood covered one side of his face. 3 teams inside, he said. They knew the camera paths. They knew the response pattern. Caleb Roman asked. "Missing." Sienna knew the name. Caleb Voss controlled internal communication staff credentials and emergency access codes. His accounts had never shown obvious theft. That did not mean he was clean. It meant he had been careful. Nico handed Roman a compact rifle. "The lower elevator is secure for now. Get the others out. I stay with you. You hold the stairs." Nico looked toward Sienna. Roman's voice hardened. "That is an order." Nico nodded once and moved back toward the gunfire. Roman and Sienna continued. The private elevator waited beyond a steel door protected by a keypad. Roman entered the code. The panel flashed red. He tried again. Red. "Someone changed it," Sienna said. Roman pulled open a narrow metal cover beneath the keypad. He reached for the manual release. A door slammed behind them. 3 men entered the corridor wearing dark tactical clothing and face coverings. Their rifles rose. Roman turned. Down. He drove Sienna to the floor as the first volley shredded the wall above them. Plaster burst across her hair. Roman rolled onto one knee and fired. The first attacker dropped. The second stumbled backward into the wall. The third moved behind a stone column and fired toward the elevator. Sienna pressed herself against the carpet. The sound was physical. It struck her chest and teeth. Hot fragments of stone landed across her hands. Roman changed position. He fired twice. The man behind the column ducked. A 4th shooter appeared at the stairwell door. Sienna saw him before Roman did. He raised his weapon toward Roman's unprotected side. Sienna aimed. The pistol shook in her hands. She fired. The bullet struck the wall near the man's shoulder. He turned toward her. Sienna fired again. This time he fell. She stared at the body. There was no triumph, only a terrible stillness. Roman looked at her once. Then the man behind the column opened fire. Roman twisted to shield Sienna. A bullet struck him beneath the left collarbone. His body jerked. The rifle slipped from his hand. He remained upright for one impossible second, then dropped to one knee. "Roman." Sienna crawled toward him. The remaining shooter stepped from behind the column. Before he could fire, a shot came from the stairwell. The man's head snapped backward. Nico stood in the doorway. "Move," he shouted. "More are coming." Roman pressed one hand to his chest. Blood forced its way between his fingers. Sienna pulled open his jacket. The bullet had entered above the edge of his vest. Dark blood soaked the shirt beneath it. His breathing became shallow. The elevator, Roman said. The manual release had opened the steel door. The elevator waited 12 feet away. Nico fired down the corridor. I have the stairs. Get him below. Roman tried to stand. His legs failed. Sienna hooked his right arm over her shoulders. He was larger than she had ever realized. Not because she had forgotten his height or strength, but because wounded weight did not cooperate. It dragged toward the ground. You cannot carry me, he said. I do not need to carry you. She pulled against the straps of his vest. I need you to move. He pushed one foot beneath himself. His blood ran over her hands. Gunfire struck the steel door. Nico shouted for them to hurry. Sienna braced her right foot against the carpet. Pain shot through her shin. The old terror returned instantly. The floor, the wrong angle, Derek's boot, the sound of breaking bone. Roman's weight shifted onto her. Her leg trembled. Leave me, he said. Sienna looked at him. His face had lost color. His eyes were still focused, but effort had replaced command. You came because I was bleeding on a floor. This is different. No. She tightened her grip. You do not get to bleed out on mine. She forced him upright. Roman took one step. His knee buckled. Sienna dragged him forward. The titanium rod vibrated beneath the strain. Pain burned through the bone. The leg held. Another step. Roman's boots scraped across the carpet. Blood marked their path. The elevator remained impossibly far away. Sienna felt her breath tearing inside her chest. Move, Roman tried. Again. He moved. They reached the threshold as bullets struck the outer steel. Nico retreated toward them while firing. Sienna pulled Roman inside. Nico slammed his palm against the lower-level button. The doors began closing. A man appeared at the end of the corridor and raised his rifle. Nico fired first. The attacker fell as the door sealed. The elevator dropped. Roman slid down the wall. Sienna knelt beside him. Blood covered his shirt, his neck, and her hands. She tore a strip from the silk blouse beneath her jacket and pressed it against the wound. Roman hissed. Hold still. The round may have fragmented, then Mercer will remove it. His eyes shifted toward the ceiling. The ledger. Sienna pressed harder. The drives are in the study. If they reach them, they will find the false access layer. Roman looked at her. She had installed it 2 months earlier without telling him. Any attempt to access the central drive without her private key would open a copied system filled with altered accounts and false routes. You prepared for this, he whispered. I prepared for you refusing to listen. A weak breath left him. It might have been a laugh. His eyes began to close. Sienna struck his cheek. Stay awake. I am awake. You are lying. The elevator continued downward. Roman reached inside his jacket. His fingers slipped against the blood. Sienna helped him remove a small black card. Numbers were printed across the surface. Emergency authority, he said. Every account. Every captain. I already have account access. Not command. His voice weakened. Code phrase is Atlas burns at dawn. Sienna stared at him. You are giving me control of the organization. I am giving you control until I take it back. Then stay alive long enough to try. The elevator stopped. The doors opened into the reinforced medical bunker. Mercer and 2 assistants rushed forward with a stretcher. They pulled Roman from Sienna's arms. Mercer cut through Roman's shirt. His expression changed when he saw the wound. Operating room now. Will he live? Sienna asked. I do not know. The words struck harder than reassurance would have. Mercer pushed the stretcher through a set of white doors. Roman's hand reached toward Sienna. She caught it. His grip was weak. The house, he whispered. I have it. His eyes found hers. Then the doors closed between them. Sienna stood in the corridor with Roman's blood drying across her hands. Nico entered the bunker several minutes later. His jacket was torn. Blood ran from a cut near his temple. The upper floor is contested, he said. Reinforcements are coming from Wisconsin and Indiana. How long? 40 minutes? Too long. Nico looked toward the operating room. Roman Mercer is working. Nico removed his receiver. Without Roman, the captains will make separate decisions. Sienna held up the black card. Atlas burns at dawn. Nico became completely still. Roman had explained the phrase only once. It granted temporary authority over every financial, defensive, and operational arm of the DeLuca organization. Nico looked at her bloody hands. He gave you command. Yes. You understand what that means. It means we stop asking questions we already answered. The command room occupied the center of the bunker. Screens covered one wall. A long table held radios, tablets, maps, and paper files. 6 senior captains appeared through secure video connections. 2 were sheltering in Chicago offices. 1 was traveling north with armed men. The others were calling from warehouses and private homes. Their voices overlapped. Where is Roman? Who authorized the port closure? Why are we moving money? We need confirmation from DeLuca. Sienna entered the room. The conversation stopped. She placed Roman's black card on the table. Roman is in surgery. One of the captains, Vincent Moretti, leaned toward his camera. Then Nico takes command. Nico stood behind Sienna. Roman gave authority to her. Moretti stared. To the accountant, Sienna sat at the head of the table. Accountants know who can afford to be disloyal. She activated the central display. A map of the organization's financial structure appeared. Red markers showed compromised accounts. The attack began after someone changed the elevator codes and opened the maintenance entrance. That required internal credentials. We are not dealing with a security failure. We are dealing with a sale. Moretti shook his head. We can find the traitor after we secure the estate. The traitor is still directing them. Sienna opened the payment records connected to the photograph. The image sent to my terminal passed through an internal communication relay. Only 4 people have access to that relay. She displayed the names: Roman, Nico, Sienna, Caleb Voss. Moretti looked toward Nico. Where is Voss missing? Nico said. Sienna opened Caleb's personnel file. His official account showed nothing unusual. She moved to an older record. Caleb has not taken obvious money. He created debt. A list appeared on the screen. Private gambling losses. A second property in his sister's name. Medical payments for a woman in Miami. A silent investment in a security company used by the Rojas cartel. He did not steal from Roman, Sienna said. He borrowed from the enemy. One captain cursed. Moretti still looked unconvinced. You built this in minutes. I built it over 14 months. I simply did not know whose name belonged at the center. She turned to Nico. Lock every credential Caleb controlled. Change the internal frequencies. Send different false retreat orders through each compromised channel. Nico nodded. Sienna looked at the screens. Freeze all accounts connected to the Western terminals. Move available cash into the Milwaukee Blind Trust. Close the South Shore warehouses. A captain objected. We have product in those buildings. You have buildings surrounded by police officers paid by the Rojas organization. How do you know Sienna displayed 3 transfers? The same officers who ignored the first shots near the estate received deposits this afternoon. Silence followed. She continued. Evacuate every family connected to senior leadership. Do not use DeLuca properties. Use hotels booked through ordinary travel accounts. Moretti folded his arms. And retaliation. Not yet. They attacked our home. They want you angry. Her voice remained even. Angry men move money quickly, gather soldiers in obvious places, and forget to ask who benefits. Moretti's face hardened. You speak as if you have fought a war. Sienna looked at him. I spent years living with a man who became most violent when he believed he was losing control. No one answered. This is the same pattern with more weapons. She opened the route map. Let them believe we are collapsing. For 3 hours, Sienna redirected the organization from the bunker. She moved funds before rival hackers reached them. She canceled shipments that had already been compromised. She created false reports suggesting Roman's cash reserves were being transferred to an abandoned distribution center near the river. The Rojas organization intercepted the reports exactly as she intended. Their vehicles changed direction. Nico's reinforcements surrounded the distribution center before the first truck entered. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, the Rojas group had lost weapons vehicles and the men controlling its Chicago expansion. The estate above grew quiet. Roman remained in surgery. Mercer emerged after 4 hours. Blood marked the front of his surgical clothes. Sienna stood before he spoke. The round fragmented near the subclavian artery. Did you remove it, most of it? Will he live? Mercer removed his glasses. He lost a dangerous amount of blood. The artery held. The next 12 hours matter. Sienna looked through the glass panel in the operating room door. Roman lay beneath white sheets, pale beneath the lights. Machines breathed and measured around him. The man who had filled every room now seemed almost consumed by the bed. Sienna returned to the command center. Nico had located Caleb Voss. He was hiding in an apartment near Midway Airport with cash passports and a ticket to Mexico City. They brought him into the bunker before dawn. Caleb wore an expensive coat over a wrinkled shirt. His hands were bound. Blood darkened one side of his mouth where Nico had struck him during the arrest. He looked at Sienna, seated at the head of the table. A smile appeared. So it is true. Sienna closed the report in front of her. What is true? He put the injured girl in his chair. Nico forced Caleb into the opposite seat. Caleb leaned back as far as the restraints allowed. Roman built an empire, then handed the keys to the first woman who looked frightened enough to awaken his conscience. Sienna studied him. You sold the estate. I sold an opportunity. You gave them security schedules. I gave them proof that Roman had become weak. Caleb looked at her right leg, all because he dragged a broken woman off a kitchen floor. Sienna felt the old scar tighten. Caleb saw it. You know I'm right. No. She opened the financial file. You sold him because you owed the Rojas organization $900,000. His smile faded. Sienna displayed the account held in his sister's name. You used Roman's security company to guarantee the debt. When you could not pay, you offered internal access. Caleb looked toward Nico. You think she is different from him, Sienna continued. You also diverted money from the Rojas organization through the Miami property. Caleb's face lost color. They do not know that. They do now. She turned the screen. A secure message showed the transfer records had been delivered to the remaining Rojas leadership. Caleb pulled against the restraints. You cannot send them that. I already did. They will kill me. Sienna looked at the man who had opened the gates to armed attackers. They may. Caleb turned toward Nico. Roman would never allow this. Roman gave her command, Nico said. Caleb looked back at Sienna. You are sentencing me without touching me. Sienna closed the file. I froze your accounts. Your passports are void. Every property connected to you has been seized. Every organization that might hide you now knows you stole from them. She leaned forward. I am not deciding what happens to you. I am closing every door you purchased with betrayal. Nico pulled Caleb to his feet. The man began shouting as he was taken from the room. Sienna did not watch him leave. Her right leg throbbed beneath the table. The pain had grown steadily since she dragged Roman into the elevator. She tried to stand. The leg failed for a moment. Nico caught her elbow. Sienna stiffened. He released her immediately. You need Mercer. He is watching Roman. He has other doctors. I have work. The work is finished. Sienna looked around the command room. Men still moved between stations. Phones continued ringing. Reports appeared across the screens. No, she said. The attack is finished. She looked toward the medical corridor. The work is breathing. 3 days passed beneath fluorescent lights. Sienna slept in a metal chair beside Roman's bed. She changed her blouse only after Mercer threatened to remove her from the medical room. Even then, she kept the blood-stained silk folded in the cabinet. The estate above was secured. The dead were removed. Broken windows were covered. Families returned from hiding. The western terminals remained closed while Nico rebuilt security from the foundation. Roman did not wake. Sienna read reports beside him. She moved funds. She approved salaries. She refused 2 demands for immediate retaliation and authorized 1 silent seizure of Rojas property. At night, when the bunker became quiet, she watched Roman breathe. His face looked younger without command, tightening every feature. Human. Mortal. That frightened her. On the 3rd morning, his fingers moved against the sheet. Sienna sat forward. Roman's breathing changed. His eyes opened slowly. The harsh light made him wince. He turned his head. He found her immediately. Sienna had imagined this moment many times during the previous 70 hours. She had imagined anger, relief, accusation. Instead, Roman looked at the dark circles beneath her eyes and whispered, "You look terrible." The pressure inside her chest cracked. "You bled on my good blouse." His mouth moved slightly. Sienna poured water into a cup and guided the straw to his lips. He drank, then closed his eyes. How long 3 days? The estate secure. The port's western operations are suspended. The money protected. Roman opened his eyes again. The organization Sienna placed a leather folder on the bed beside him, still standing. He studied her face. You took control. Someone had to. Did they obey eventually? Roman looked toward the folder. And Caleb, his account is closed. Roman understood the meaning in her voice. He did not ask for the details. His hand moved across the sheet. The effort made it tremble. He reached for Sienna's wrist. His fingers closed around her pulse. The touch was weak, but deliberate. "You did not hesitate," he said. Sienna looked down at his hand. "I did." Roman's gaze sharpened, where every step between the corridor and the elevator. She met his eyes. "I moved anyway." For the first time since waking, Roman looked at peace. His thumb moved once against her wrist. The ledger Sienna placed her hand over his. Ours. The word remained between them. Roman's fingers tightened weakly around Sienna's wrist. For 14 months, every room in the estate had belonged to him. Every guard answered to him. Every account carried his authority, even when his name never appeared beside the money. Now he looked at Sienna as though the word had altered the architecture around them. Mercer entered before Roman could respond. He checked the monitor, examined the dressing beneath Roman's collarbone, then looked at Sienna. "You are supposed to be in the other medical room. My leg is fine. You dragged a man twice your size across a hallway while people were shooting at you." Roman turned his head toward her. "You did not mention that part. You were there. I was losing blood. You were still giving orders." Mercer pulled back the blanket covering Roman's chest. Dark bruising spread beneath the bandages. The bullet fragmented against the edge of the protective plate. One piece entered the muscle below the collarbone. Another stopped less than half an inch from the artery. Roman looked down at the wound. "When can I stand?" Mercer stared at him. "You nearly died 3 days ago." "That does not answer the question. 6 weeks before you lift anything heavier than a glass of water. Longer before you return to normal activity." Roman attempted to sit higher. Pain crossed his face. He concealed it quickly, but Sienna saw. Mercer pushed him back against the pillow. "You are confined to this bed until I decide otherwise." Roman looked toward Sienna. She folded her arms. "Do not ask me to disagree with him." His eyes narrowed. "You placed yourself in my chair. You were unconscious. You enjoyed it. More than I expected." Mercer examined Sienna's leg next. The skin around the old surgical site was swollen, but the bone remained stable. He ordered rest ice and several days without unnecessary walking. Sienna nodded. Then she ignored most of the instructions. For the following week, she continued managing the organization from Roman's medical room. A portable table stood beside his bed. 2 laptops remained open from sunrise until after midnight. Nico brought reports from the estate reconstruction. Captains appeared through secure video calls. Lawyers requested authorization for property transfers. Port managers demanded decisions about suspended routes. At first, Roman attempted to interrupt every conversation. Sienna muted his microphone. He stared at her. "You muted me. You are medicated. I am conscious. You ordered a retaliation against the wrong warehouse 20 minutes after taking morphine. The warehouse belongs to Rojas. It belongs to his cousin, who is currently negotiating with us." Roman looked toward Nico. "Why did no one tell me I tried?" Nico said. Sienna continued reviewing the report. Roman's voice lowered. "Unmute me, when you can read an entire page without closing one eye." Nico looked down, hiding what might have been a smile. Roman noticed. "Leave." Nico left immediately. The door closed. Roman turned his attention back to Sienna. She expected anger. Instead, he watched her move through the accounts. "You changed the western route." "Yes." "You are sending shipments through Wisconsin. Temporarily. It costs 12% more. It costs less than losing another convoy. The drivers will complain." "They can complain while breathing." Roman remained silent. Sienna looked up. "What? You sound like me." "No." She closed one file and opened another. "I sound like someone who has spent 14 months correcting you." The corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. Sienna had learned that Roman's real amusement rarely reached his face. It appeared in the way his attention lingered in the small relaxation of his shoulders, in the silence he allowed to become warm instead of threatening. She had also learned that tenderness made him uneasy. Violence was simple to him. Care created debts he did not know how to measure. On the 9th morning after he woke, Roman asked Nico to bring a leather folder from the vault. Sienna was reviewing payroll records when Nico placed it on the bed. Roman waited until they were alone. "Close the laptop. I am working. This concerns your contract." Her hand stopped above the keyboard. Roman opened the folder. The first page carried the date she arrived at the estate. The second listed the original cost of surgery, security, housing, and rehabilitation. The final page bore Roman's signature. A thick black line had been drawn through the balance. Sienna read the new statement beneath it. Debt satisfied in full, contract terminated, all remaining compensation released without condition. She looked at Roman. "I have not completed 3 years. You saved my life. That was not part of the agreement." "No. You cannot rewrite the contract whenever you feel indebted. I am not rewriting it." Roman reached into the folder and removed another document. "This is a release." Sienna read the account information. The number beside her name was large enough to purchase a home, disappear for years, or begin a life that had no connection to the DeLuca organization. Roman continued. "The account contains your salary, severance, and compensation for the risk created by your employment." Severance, yes. The word struck more sharply than she expected. Roman placed a second envelope beside the folder. Identification documents, a passport, ownership papers for an apartment in Boston, no connection to any DeLuca company. Sienna stared at the envelope. Boston. You once applied for a position there. She had forgotten. 3 years before meeting Derek, she had applied for a financial investigation role with a national shipping company. She had made it through 2 interviews. Then Derek said long-distance relationships never survived. She withdrew her application. Sienna looked at Roman. "You found that. I investigated options. For me. Yes." The room felt suddenly smaller. "And Lila, her protective detail remains for as long as she wants it. She does not owe me anything." Sienna closed the folder. "What happens if I leave?" Roman's expression did not change. "A car takes you to the airport or any address you choose. No one follows me. No. No one watches the apartment. No. No one reports who I meet." His jaw tightened. "No." Sienna leaned closer. "If I tell Nico to drive south instead of east, he obeys me." "Yes." "If I change my name and never contact you again." Roman looked toward the ceiling. For several seconds he did not answer. Sienna waited. At last his gaze returned to hers. "No one brings you back." It was the hardest promise she had ever heard him make. Not because the words were complicated, because he meant them. Sienna stood slowly. Her leg protested. She reached for the carbon fiber cane resting near the chair, then stopped. Roman watched her hand remain empty. When she asked, "The car can be ready this afternoon." Sienna nodded. She carried the folder to her room. The suite had changed since the first morning she woke there. The medical equipment was gone. The shelves held books she had chosen. Her clothes filled the closet. Reports covered the desk beside the window. A second monitor displayed the financial structure of the Western ports. She opened the closet. The suitcase Nico had collected from her apartment rested on the upper shelf. The same suitcase Derek had seen beside the bed. Sienna pulled it down. For several minutes she stood over it without moving. Then she began packing. She folded the first blouse. Her hand stopped. The memory returned with perfect clarity. The bedroom in Bridgeport, the sound of Derek's key, the need to leave without disturbing the shape of the room. Sienna unfolded the blouse. She placed it in the suitcase without smoothing it. The next shirt followed. Then trousers, shoes, documents, and the watch that had belonged to her mother. She did not clean the desk. She did not arrange the pillows. She did not check whether the closet looked empty. When the suitcase was full, Sienna closed it and walked away from the room exactly as she had left it. Nico waited near the front entrance. The estate still bore damage from the attack. New glass had been installed across the lower foyer, but patches of lighter stone showed where bullets had struck the walls. Workers moved through the west corridor carrying tools and sheets of wood. Outside, snow covered the long drive. A black sedan idled beneath the front steps. Nico took the suitcase. Airport Evanston first. He placed the bag in the trunk. Sienna looked back at the estate. Roman was not visible. She had not expected him to come downstairs. Mercer would not allow it. Still, part of her had imagined him standing at a window. The sedan pulled away. No vehicle followed. Sienna watched through the rear glass until the estate disappeared behind the trees. The distance felt unreal. For 14 months, every road had led back to Roman. Now the road remained open. Lila lived in a narrow brick building near the lake. She opened the apartment door before Sienna could knock. For 1 second, neither sister moved. Then Lila wrapped both arms around her. Sienna stiffened at the sudden contact. Lila felt it and immediately stepped back. "I am sorry." "No." Sienna caught her hand. "Do it again." Lila embraced her more carefully. Sienna closed her eyes. Her sister smelled like hospital soap coffee and the lavender lotion she had used since college. Familiar things. Safe things. They stood in the hallway until Lila began crying. Inside, the apartment was warm and crowded with ordinary life. A sweater rested over the back of a chair. 2 coffee cups waited beside the sink. A grocery list was attached to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like Illinois. Sienna walked through the room slowly. No guards stood outside the windows. No weapons were hidden beneath tables. No encrypted phones vibrated with emergency codes. Lila made tea. Sienna sat at the kitchen table and watched steam rise between them. "Are you free?" Lila asked. The question carried no judgment. Sienna considered it. "Yes." "Did he let you go?" "Yes." "Did you want to leave?" Sienna looked toward the window. Snow moved over the street in soft sheets. "I needed to know that I could." Lila wrapped both hands around her cup. "What did he make you do?" Sienna could have lied. The old instinct rose. Protect the room, control the damage, give the answer that keeps everyone calm. Instead, she said, "I managed his money." Lila waited. "Illegal money, yes. Did people get hurt because of decisions you made? Yes." Lila looked down. Sienna continued before fear could silence her. "I also stopped people from being hurt. I changed how consequences were decided. I moved families before they became targets. I protected people who would never know my name. You are defending him. I am explaining myself." Lila's eyes filled again. "I spent more than a year imagining you trapped somewhere." "I was trapped at first." And now Sienna looked at her hands. The scars near her knuckles had faded. The surgical line down her leg would remain. "Now I know the difference between a locked door and a door I'm afraid to open." Lila reached across the table. She did not touch Sienna until Sienna turned her palm upward. "Stay here," Lila said. Sienna looked around the apartment. She could stay. She could find legitimate work. She could learn the names of Lila's neighbors. She could wake without reports waiting beside the bed. The idea was peaceful. It was also incomplete. That evening, Sienna walked alone beside the lake. The wind came hard across the water. Ice gathered along the rocks. The lights of downtown Chicago glowed far to the south. Her right leg ached. She stopped near the railing and placed both hands against the cold metal. For years, Sienna had imagined freedom as distance. Distance from Derek. Distance from the apartment. Distance from fear. Roman had given her distance. Now she understood that freedom was not the road leading away from power. It was the right to decide what she would do with it. She returned to Lila's apartment after dark. Her sister was reading on the couch. Sienna placed the apartment keys from Boston on the coffee table. "I am not going there." Lila closed the book. "Are you going back to him?" "I am going back to what I built." "That is not the same question." Sienna sat across from her. "No." Lila waited. Sienna allowed the truth to form before speaking it. "Yes, I am going back to him. Because you love him." The word felt too simple for what existed between them. "I trust him enough to leave." Sienna looked toward the keys, and he trusted me enough to let me. Lila studied her face. "Do you love him?" Sienna thought of Roman sitting outside her locked door during a nightmare. She thought of him stopping Mercer when she asked. She thought of his blood on her hands. She thought of the release papers signed while he was still too weak to stand. "Yes." Lila closed her eyes briefly. "That terrifies me. It terrifies me too." "Then why go back?" "Because fear does not get to make every decision anymore." The following morning, Nico returned. He did not ask why. He placed Sienna's suitcase in the trunk and opened the rear door. The drive to Lake Forest took less than an hour. No one spoke. When the estate appeared through the trees, Sienna felt something settle inside her. Not surrender. Recognition. She entered through the repaired front doors carrying the leather folder beneath one arm. The guards straightened. Workers stopped speaking. Nico walked beside her until they reached the medical wing. Roman sat in a wheelchair near the window. Mercer stood behind him, adjusting a support sling across his chest. Roman looked thinner. The color had returned to his face, but pain still sharpened his posture. His gaze moved to Sienna, then to the folder, then to the suitcase Nico had left in the corridor. "You returned." Sienna entered the room. "I did." Roman looked toward Nico. "Leave us," Mercer objected. "He needs rest." Sienna glanced at him. "He can rest after page 4. Mercer muttered something under his breath and followed Nico out. The door closed. Roman watched Sienna cross the room. "You were gone less than 24 hours. Were you counting yes?" She placed the folder on his lap. "The Western terminals are losing money." Roman did not look down. "You have an apartment in Boston, I do. A clean identity, yes. Enough money to disappear, yes." His voice lowered. "And you came back with a financial report." Sienna moved behind the desk, Roman's desk. She sat in his chair. His eyes followed her. "I did not come back under the old contract. There is no old contract." "Good." She opened the folder. "I am not an employee." Roman remained silent. "I receive equal authority over financial operations. You already exercised it. Now it is written." Sienna turned a page. "No punishment resulting from one of my investigations occurs without my approval." Roman's expression cooled. "That limits operational command. It limits waste. Some men respond only to pain. Then we select the pain instead of repeating the same primitive answer." Roman studied her. Sienna continued. "The organization will establish safe residences for women leaving violent homes. Legal support, medical care, protected transportation. You want to use my properties as shelters. I want to use seized properties. That creates exposure. So did paying Captain Bell to bury complaints." Roman looked toward the window. The reference landed exactly where she intended. Sienna softened her voice without withdrawing the demand. "We cannot claim to punish men like Derek while funding the system that protected him." Roman returned his gaze to her. "What else Lila remains protected without surveillance inside her home?" "Agreed. You never use my debt, my injury, or the night you found me as leverage." Roman's face became unreadable. "I erased the debt, I know." Sienna stood. "I need to hear the rest." Roman's hands tightened on the arms of the wheelchair. "I will never use what happened to you as leverage." She stepped closer. "And if we disagree, we disagree. If I walk out," his jaw tightened, "you walk out. If I return," Roman looked up at her, "you return because you choose to." The room became quiet. Sienna stopped in front of him. "What do you receive?" Roman asked. "A partner who saved your organization. I had Nico." "Nico cannot find 3% hidden in fuel invoices. He can break the person who stole it, which is why you need me." Roman's gaze moved over her face. "What else do I receive?" Sienna understood the question beneath the question. She could have answered with another contract term. Instead, she reached for him. Roman lifted one hand, then stopped before touching her waist. He waited. The restraint mattered more than any declaration. Sienna placed her hand along his jaw. The faint mark from the day she struck him was long gone. "I came back," she said. Roman's voice dropped. "That is not an answer. It is the only one you received today." She leaned down and kissed him. For 1 second, Roman remained completely still. Then his hand moved to the back of her neck. The kiss deepened. It was not gentle, but it did not take. It asked. Sienna answered. All the anger between them remained. So did the fear, the debt, the violence, and every argument that had not yet happened. None of it disappeared. It became part of the truth they were choosing with open eyes. When Sienna pulled back, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "I was not certain I could let you leave. But you did." "Yes. That is why I returned." Roman's eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, the command had returned to them. Not the cold emptiness he showed his enemies. Something darker, warmer, possessive without becoming a cage. Sienna stepped away and returned to the desk. Roman looked at her. "That is all we have work. You kissed me, negotiated control of my organization, then returned to a spreadsheet. You are behind on payroll." Roman's mouth curved. This time the smile reached his eyes. 6 weeks later he returned to the study. He entered in a wheelchair, one arm still supported beneath his jacket. A second desk had been installed beside his. It remained unused. Sienna sat in Roman's chair reviewing a city property report. Roman stopped near the doorway. "You're in my seat. You were late. This is my office. This is our ledger." Nico entered behind him carrying a file. He placed it on the desk. "A city councilman named Paul Renner has been taking payments from landlords on the south side." Sienna opened the file. The properties had produced dozens of domestic violence complaints. Police reports vanished. Tenants who requested emergency lock changes were threatened with eviction. Roman rolled closer. "In the past, I would have removed his hands, I know." He looked at Sienna. "How do we balance it?" She turned through the property records. "We take the buildings, legally enough. And Renner, we expose the payments, destroy his political protection, and use his properties for the shelter network." Roman considered it. "He will still have hands." "Yes. He may find that disappointing." Sienna closed the folder. "He can use them to sign the transfer documents." Nico looked between them. "I will prepare the team." He left. Roman moved beside the desk. Sienna looked through the tall windows toward Chicago. Once she had survived by becoming smaller than the room. Now rooms changed when she entered them. Her phone vibrated. The message came from an unknown number. Sienna looked at the screen. "My husband says he will kill me if I leave. I do not know who else to call." Roman read the message over her shoulder. "Do you know her wrong number, possibly?" Roman reached for his phone. "I will call Nico." Sienna stopped him. "No." He looked at her. "This one came to me." She typed a reply. "Send me your address. Do not warn him." The answer arrived seconds later. Sienna stood. Her old cane remained in the corner of the office gathering dust. She did not reach for it. Roman watched her button her coat. "You are going yourself." "Yes. You have people for this. So did you." Roman's gaze held hers. Then he reached for his coat. Mercer had forbidden him from leaving the estate. Sienna looked at the wheelchair. "You are not coming." Roman opened the drawer and removed a pistol. "Then I will sit in the car." She almost argued. Instead, she took the weapon from him, checked the magazine, and placed it inside her coat. Outside, black vehicles gathered beneath the falling snow. Engines turned over. Nico opened the rear door. Sienna looked toward Roman. He watched her from the study window, one hand resting against the glass. The first time a desperate message reached the wrong number, Sienna had waited on the floor for someone powerful to break down the door. Now she was the one driving through the darkness. And somewhere across Chicago, a locked door was about to open.